Narcissists hate your success. They are envious, resentful, bitter little people, and when they see somebody else succeeding, it makes them lash out. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about whatever it is I feel like talking about, and today I feel like talking about how narcissists react to the success of other people, but not just that. It could be something like just the happiness of other people. I've made some notes, and then I'm just going to expound a little bit. I try to stick to the notes because if I talk, you guys know I'm a talker. I will ramble, and then this video will end up being way longer than it needs to be. Just real quick, also, if you enjoy the video, please remember to like the video. That always helps us with the algorithm here. We're very censored and suppressed. Please leave a comment. That also helps. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can become a member as well. So, okay, let's talk about this. If you grew up with a narcissistic parent, or maybe you had both parents were narcissists, you understand very from a very young age that your your narcissist parent is different from the parents of your peers, right? While most people would celebrate the achievements of others or of their children, like you do well in school, you expect, you want to run and tell your parents and say, oh, look, I did well on this test, like your other friends do. But the narcissist does not react like a normal supportive person. They react to the success and achievements of others with envy, resentment, and hostility. This is because they have a insatiable need for attention, for validation from other people, from externally. This need for outside validation. They don't have any internal validation, and um, they can't tolerate other people getting the attention and validation they feel they're entitled to, even if it's a child, their child who simply did well on a test, or got a role in the school play. I remember when I was in first grade, we had this I think it was called The Littlest Christmas Tree. We had this Christmas play that the school was putting on. And I got the role of Mrs. Claus, and I was very proud of this and very excited to tell my mother. And she's like, oh, well, who's playing The Littlest Christmas Tree? Oh, Julia. Oh, yes, she's very, like she would just get, oh, and like talking about this other kid and how great and wonderful she is. Oh, and I heard her mother does this and she does gymnastics and and I would just be like, okay, but that was like what she would do. And just to make it like subtly or not so subtly known that like you should have gotten the lead part and this other kid did, and I'm going to talk up how great they are, and we're just going to like ignore the role that you had. And by the way, I thought I played a pretty good Mrs. Claus, if I do say so myself. There was a time where I had to fake cry, and I thought I did really well. I had this little tissue so the outfit, you had this like furry thing. I've never seen one of these before, but I guess it's like a fur thing that you put your hands into. And I had this little tissue in there that I pulled out and like wiped my tear at the right moment. Okay, I was proud of myself. But anyways, like their first instinct, the narcissist, is to devalue the success or achievement or accomplishments of others. It is not to be supportive or, say, that a girl, you did a good job. No, they have to downplay the significance of that achievement, or they have to find fault in something, like you didn't do something right. Like, oh yes, you got a part in the play, but you didn't get the lead role. You know what I mean? They have to diminish these successes of others, because that to them helps them retain their false sense of superiority, like their arrogance and their desire to be in control and to control you. They feel threatened by the success and achievements of others, because this is the reminder that they're not as good as everybody else. You know, it's a reminder of their own shortcomings and failures, even if their standards for themselves are kind of ridiculous. My mother was obsessed with like being wealthy, having money, looking like she was high status or whatever. And she would blow money on stupid things like having a fancy car that she couldn't afford, and couldn't even afford like the maintenance on. And then she would eat like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches just so she could have a flashy car, because she felt like that was an external sign that she's made it, or like that she was somebody. And it's like, to who though? Who cares about you driving a BMW? Literally nobody. And the only people who see a fancy car as like an actual sign of anything, like these are superficial people, right? That's not the kind of person that you're going to want to attract into your life anyways. But this is, you know, you cannot tell a narcissist this, because that's how they think as well. They're just as superficial in their judgments of others. Like my mother would look at somebody's car, and if they had an older car or a car that was not, you know, super fancy, she would look down on that and on that person. Like that's how she thought. So, of course, she projected these thoughts onto other people and would assume that that's what people would think of her if she was driving anything less than a, you know, a brand new BMW or Volvo or whatever, you know. When they see other people who have things, you know, this is the reminder, that the trigger that I might be inadequate, I might be inferior, you know, somebody is better than me. They want to be the best, and they lash out in their attempt to regain their sense of power and dominance over others too, because like that's the other thing of driving the fancy car. Part of that is to try to flex on other people. Like they want to display that as a symbol to others that I am better than you, or I have more than you, I've accomplished more, whatever. And one of the other things that one of the other immediate reactions to seeing somebody else get something they want, or achieve something that they felt they were entitled to, is to try to sabotage that person. If this is in the workplace, it's things like spreading rumors and gossip about you, trying to undermine your performance, making unfair criticisms in an effort to sabotage the other person's success, but also position themselves to uh, to take, you know, take charge of the situation, or to get the promotion themselves, or whatever it is. And again, to try to feel like they can reassert the control and dominance that they feel they lose when they see other people get things they want. That threatens their sense of control, because they always feel out of control, and it helps to preserve their very fragile egos. Um, they also, if those things don't work, they may just outright respond with aggression and hostility towards people who, you know, have achieved something that they wanted, that they didn't get. And that would be mocking, belittling, tearing down that person. You didn't really deserve that. And telling them why, you know, and going on this litany of like nasty comment. Like my mother would say the nastiest things that you could say about somebody. She could talk like a sailor. You know, the sailor would come out and it would just be a nonstop verbal diarrhea of everything you've ever done wrong. And then they always have to their mental filing cabinet where they can remember things from 6 years ago that you did or didn't do, but like they conveniently forget their own misdeeds from like last week, but they're always keeping track of your perceived snides or whatever it is, even if you didn't do anything and didn't have the intent to do anything either. That doesn't matter. Um, and this is all just to try to bolster their own feeling of control and superiority. Um, so they are very envious people, they're very resentful, they are very bitter. And when they see other people that are happy, if they see somebody that's happy when they're not, they will react with narcissistic rage. Sometimes that rage is simmering. They don't always put it overtly out. They may act in like passive aggressive ways, but sometimes they will just lash out at you and you will experience the narcissistic rage that comes from their narcissistic injury. They also hate anybody who has like authentic confidence, because that tells them that uh, you have a sense of self-worth that they don't have about themselves, because they hate themselves and they have very deep self-loathing, and again feelings of inadequacy that can only be temporarily quelled by getting this constant influx of validation, attention from other people. They need that external validation. So when they see somebody who has authentic confidence that doesn't need acolytes from other people or external validation to know that they have value and self-worth, um, that makes them angry because they are so insecure. The authentic confidence is a trigger to that, and they feel constantly oppressed, as it were, by the world around them. My mother's story has always been a victim narrative, even though she had many advantages that other people didn't have growing up. She had help from her parents, but in her mind, she was always a victim, or the things that she did get, it wasn't good enough. Her brothers were given more, so therefore, like, she didn't appreciate any of the things she had, and she's a constant victim. Things happen to her and she's just, passively there, and there's no accountability and there's no responsibility for a grown adult for where their life is. And I understand that, things happen to you when you're young, and that it isn't always your fault. And there are sometimes when people are legitimately victimized. And that did happen to my mother when she was young. She was, victimized at one point, but you can't allow that to be your excuse for everything, is that I'm always a victim. No matter what I do, it's justified and okay, and you can't complain about it later because of my victim narrative, because I've been so mistreated my entire life. And it was every failed relationship, every job that she couldn't last more than 6 months at. It was always somebody else, and she was being oppressed. She was being targeted. She was being victimized. It was never that, maybe her behavior was causing problems where she went and how she treated people, how she talked to people. Um, there was no like self-reflection there. There was no moment of like self-awareness of saying, you know what, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's not everybody else. Maybe it's me. And then doing like this internal inventory. That does not happen with narcissists. They don't self-reflect in that way. It is everybody else is out to get them, and everything is about them. And if you didn't know that, well, now you do, and you better get in line, or they don't really care to engage with you. they don't like seeing people who are strong too and independent, you know? This was one of the issues my mother had with me when I was growing up, was even as a kid, like I've always had issues with figures of authority or whatever. Like I've been very opinionated and I would just say what I thought and I would give my opinions. Well, she didn't like that. She didn't like that I wouldn't just accept her narrative about things, that I was very curious and I wanted to come up with have my own opinions and thoughts on things. That was a threat to her control. She didn't like that. They do not like strength and independence because they don't have that. They rely on external validation and they have to have these trinkets, these outward displays, to have these superficial validations, I guess, that they constantly need. So they don't like people who just who feel validated on their own from themselves. That bothers them because they don't have that strength and they don't have that independence. Narcissists also tend to be miserable all the time. They're they see people who are happy or who are content with what they have, and they hate those people. My mother would call those people lazy. Oh, they're happy settling for less than nothing. You know, that's what she would say about people who are just happy living a normal existence and didn't want an extravagant lifestyle and were not constantly on the prowl for wealth schemes. Um, you know, uh, seeing people like that, you know, the assumption is that they're not happy or that there's something wrong with them or that they're lazy or stupid or they have no ambition. That's, you know, what she would think about people. And the other thing is that narcissists are never happy because they themselves, like, they're never satisfied. They don't feel good about themselves, so they don't feel good about other people because, again, they project all of their own insecurities, their own fears, their shame that they have onto everybody else. They resent people who are happy, who are doing well in life, people who are succeeding, people who are setting goals and achieving them. They resent it and it makes them angry. Um, they're mad at those people for not requiring this constant deluge of outside validation that they require, and this causes them to have these very childish outbursts, if you will. It's almost like watching a kid, if you are a parent and you've raised children and you've had to watch a child try to like struggle to articulate a feeling verbally. It's sort of like watching that, you know, and then and kids have outbursts because they don't know how to say what they need and what they want. They haven't learned that yet. It's almost like narcissists get stunted as like a child emotionally, where I think it's difficult for them to articulate their feelings. So they lash out, they have the outburst, which then causes them to feel bad. And they go into the shame and rage cycle. They lash out, they have the outburst, then they feel incredibly bad and inferior. And they have this shame. Oh, I did this, you know, I inappropriately lashed out. They feel all this shame about it. And then that throws them back into rage and anger. And then they just they spiral. That's what my sister and I have called it, the shame rage cycle, because they go through these patterns too. Like, you know, when they're going to go into one of their spirals, like you can see it coming on and you can anticipate it once you've been around people like this. Um, that anger comes from I think their arrogance and their desire for superiority. And they're very arrogant and entitled because they lack, again, like the ability to kind of self-aware. And they're also very fear-based. Like, everything is about fear or shame. That's the things that motivate them. And they also have these incredibly bizarre power fantasies where And I know it sounds silly, and it almost again sounds childlike. Some of the absurdities of these power fantasies, where they fantasize about being able to like dominate others physically. Maybe they, in their fantasy, like they're physically bigger and stronger than they normally are, and they can, beat up weaker people. And these are the kinds of like bizarre power fantasies that they have. They fantasize about becoming incredibly wealthy and then flashing that to all the people who, didn't believe them or doubted their superiority. This is like what the mentality that you're dealing with. It really is like a child in an adult's body. They are incredibly terrified of being made to feel ashamed. Something happened to them. I tend to believe, and I've said this before in other videos, that narcissism is a response to childhood trauma. So it's like something happened to them when they were a child where they were made to feel ashamed, and they're terrified of feeling that feeling again. And this is why they put so much effort into putting on this false persona of perfection. Another thing that they hate and they rage about is it's not even just you being happy, succeeding, accomplishing things. They don't just get angry at that. They get angry at people who are simply nice. What do I mean by that? They are they project again their own intentions onto other people. And so if somebody does something nice for them, they automatically assume, because this is how they are and how they think, that that person is only doing something for me because they want something from me. They're, only being nice to me because they're going to then bring this up later to hold it over my head. This can be completely untrue and couldn't be further from the truth regarding your intent. It doesn't matter. They project it onto you because that's how they think. And they assume that everybody else thinks the same way. They cannot conceive of the fact that somebody might just do something nice for them just to be nice, because they tend not to do that. So it's very revealing about them as well, that just something as small as niceness to them can be viewed with suspicion, if that makes sense. Now, you'll notice too that like this of course does not apply to them. Um for example, when they have an achievement or success, maybe they meet a goal they were trying to set at the gym, and they come and tell you about that. You better celebrate their success. You better, tell them how great they are, how impressed you are, how wonderful they are, and, like you better respond accordingly and celebrate their success. So they will diminish and devalue your successes. They'll tell you you didn't earn that, or they'll come up with a reason to not allow you to have your day or whatever. But you have to be there to be supportive of them. And if you don't, well, you're, the bad person. So you better talk up their achievements, but don't you dare celebrate your own. And this causes people to, if you're, living with a narcissist, like if you have a narcissist parent and you're a child, and you're stuck living with them, it causes the child to start to diminish themselves, right? Because they don't want to get in trouble for succeeding, for doing well, for accomplishing things, for being admired by other people, because they know, oh, if I do that, that could take the spotlight off mom, and she's going to get mad at me and make things difficult for me. So they just learn to kind of like keep their head down. And I think that's really sad, because it's like they learn to limit their own potential so as not to offend the narcissist. And I think that's sad, but that's true. And also this happens for people who are in relationships with narcissists. They learn not to tell their spouse about the promotion they got at work because they know it's going to be a fight, it's going to be an argument, rather than being supportive, which is what you would expect from, your spouse, from your husband or wife. You would expect them to be supportive of you when you have an accomplishment or do well or are promoted. You would want to share that with them, and not to flex on them, but that's how they'll take it. They take that as you did it on purpose to make them feel bad. Think about how insane that sounds. That's how their mind works. You got a promotion at work on purpose at this time when you knew they were at their lowest, or whatever their victim narrative is currently. You did that on purpose to make them feel bad. And you were planning it apparently too. Like, this is the kind of thing that they will say, which is psychotic, but they will at times convince themselves that this is true. The other thing is, if they're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. They literally will say things in their own mind, like they see somebody who's happy and they think to themselves, why should you get to be happy right now when I'm not? Which is crazy because, again, they think this even about their friends and loved ones. Imagine you have, your brother has a good day or something and is happy, and the first thing that comes into mind is, well, I'm not happy, so how dare he be happy today? Like, a normal person would be like, you know what, I'm feeling pretty down right now, things aren't going so great for me, but I'm really glad they worked out for my brother, I'm happy for him. That is not like a thing for them. Being happy for other people is not something they really experience. They have such jealousy and envy of other people, and they will lash out at their own family and friends when they are doing good, rather than just simply focusing on their own self-improvement and how they could do better. It's like, I'm not going to be happy for you, and if I'm not going to be happy, no one's going to be happy. It's like the saying that they say, misery loves company. Your happiness makes them feel inadequate, and that upsets them. Even again, if this is not your intent. Another thing that they will do is they'll take credit for your successes. Of course, not for your failures, right? When you fail, that's because you're an idiot and because you didn't listen to them enough, which obviously you should have done. And if you would have listened to them, you would have succeeded. Duh, moron. When you do succeed, though, if they're not just belittling you and lashing out and getting angry, they're saying, like, they're taking credit for your successes and achievements. They're saying, well, you really wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for me, if I wasn't the one here helping you every single day. This is that you'll if you've experienced it, if you know, you know. This is They'll say this, by the way, even if they couldn't be bothered to do the bare minimum. They will look you dead in the face and they will say to you that you wouldn't have gotten that without me helping you, so much. And then you could ask them, well, how did you help me? Like, name one actual thing that you did. They'll just manufacture something. Well, I've been, who do you think's been picking up all the slack around you? Like, they'll just come up with something to say to just take credit for it, even if they couldn't be bothered to do the bare minimum. Like, maybe you asked them to do a simple task and they couldn't even do that. They will still take credit for your accomplishment. And if you have a narcissistic parent, I think you know exactly what that can be like. You would expect that parent to be supportive of your success, but instead it's meant with mocking, belittling. Sometimes when you're talking to a narcissist and you tell them, about maybe you just, achieved a goal or whatever, something that you were working towards, and they'll say something like, yeah, it must be nice to have all that extra money. or what, like they'll just make up something to say that you had some kind of advantage, or must be nice to live in that area. Must be nice to live so close to work, if I had that, I could have, I could have this too. Like they'll just, it must be nice to, you know, uh, be a size 4. And you're like, what? What does this have to do with anything? And, or must be nice to be a woman. Oh, okay, right. I've only succeeded or done well because I'm female. Or must be nice to be pretty, like it's like, okay, but that's what they'll do. You'll hear these like, snide, passive aggressive comments. And they make everything about themselves, right? It has to be about them, how unfair life has been to them. Again, my mother and her victim story, and how, everybody was always out to get her everywhere she went, and nothing was ever her fault. It's the same for the narcissist, and they seethe at your happiness. There is a saying too, and I find this interesting, and it is true to a certain degree, and in a certain sense, that when you are down and out, like when you're struggling, you learn who your real friends are. And that's true because, like, when I was a teenager and my mother threw me out, um, I learned who my friends were, in the sense of not everybody made the effort, now that an effort had to be made to drive to visit me when I was sleeping on couches, and it was hard and not easy to be my friend. Yes, like you learn who your real friends are, but this does not apply with the narcissist. There's a caveat to that, because when you're down and out, or when you're struggling, when you are in a moment of vulnerability, that is when the narcissist swoops in to be the savior, right? And they swoop in to kind of help you, not because like it's the right thing to do, but it's more like helping you makes them feel better about themselves, and it makes them feel superior. When you are in need, when you are down and out, they can feel superior, right? Well, at least I'm, not homeless like this person, right? Things could be worse for me. That's like, so they're doing it to boost their own ego, not to actually help you, or not because they actually care. It's more about validating themselves that, well, at least they're not in your situation. And then you might notice too that when your life does get on track, when you get out of being homeless, when you get a job, maybe you start, just using myself as an example, you start working at a law firm and doing well for yourself, then you notice that the narcissist that was helping you and was there to be supportive and caring, well, now they're not so supportive or caring. Now it seems like they're making snide comments about you. Now it seems like they're, talking about you behind your back, um, making insinuations that, you didn't earn the things that you had. You didn't work hard for it. It was just given to you. Again, must be nice to be pretty, right? Or whatever. This is, how they are. And so that I thought was something is an interesting caveat to that well-known saying of like, when times are hard for you, you learn who your real friends are. Well, no, sometimes that's when you are victimized by a predator, is when you are your most vulnerable. They'll make invalidating comments. They'll just be disrespectful, because they want you to feel as bad as they do, right? They want to kind of knock you off your high horse, as it were. Oh, how dare she have a good day? How dare she just be happy for no reason when I'm miserable? No, she should be miserable too, because if I'm miserable, everybody else should be miserable. And they have these toxic spirals, and that just comes from, again, their own internal uh, inability to ever be satisfied with anything. Nothing's ever good enough for them. They're never going to be content. They're never going to be happy. And this is because of their low self-esteem, their low self-worth. You'll have to be subjected to their passive aggressive jabs, their snide comments, because you just existing and, you know, being happy or achieving something, you just existing and doing that is activating their insecurities. It's triggering them, and they will guilt trip you also. They'll make you feel bad because something good happened or because you achieved something. They want to make you feel bad about it to minimize and diminish your achievements, because they're always in competition with everybody else around them. They that's how their mind works. Everything's a game, everything's a competition, and they have to be the winner. They have to be on top, you know. It's a really sad way to go through your life. And they, because they see things as this constant competition when other people don't, when something does go well for you and you tell them about it, hey, you know, I just got this, I learned this good news today. Turns out I was able to get, you know, reach this goal I was trying to reach, or whatever it is. Could be fundraising for a project. And they will accuse you of trying to flex on them, of trying to rub things in their face when you really have no idea like what they're talking about. They're going to try to you know, make you feel like you did something wrong. And it's like, where is this coming from? The reason that they think you just mentioning something good happening to you, to them, is you trying to upset them, is because when they do it, that's what their intention is. When they're telling you about a success they had or an achievement, it isn't just because, like a normal person, how you're thinking in a normal friendship, that you share things, right? You talk about the things that go well, the things that go bad, and you know, you're expecting it to be mutually supportive. When they're telling you about their achievements and stuff, it is because they are trying subtly to rub it in your face and flex on you, the thing that they are going to project on you and accuse you of trying to do to them. Again, this just tells us more about them and their character than about us, because that's their reaction. Yeah, they're not capable of feeling happy for other people for the most part. They just feel resentment and bitterness towards that person. And they feel entitled to any recognition that you are getting that they're not getting. And they hate themselves, and they have to project that onto you. They don't actually care about doing something that maybe takes years to obtain any kind of benefit from, right? They just want the benefit from it without having to put in the years of hard work. They feel entitled to the outcome, I guess, without having to put in any effort. And so that is why they're so envious when other people are succeeding or are doing well or are just happy. They see that as a personal attack on them, that that person is only doing that to make them feel bad, which is just crazy. And that's where we get into the crazy making behaviors that they go into, and that's a whole other video. This has already gotten much longer than I wanted it to be. I tried to stay to my bullet points, but you guys know how it is. I talk. I'm a talker. I know. Sue me. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm interested to know your thoughts on this, and to hear about your experiences dealing with narcissists and how they can be when you are simply living your life well, doing well in life, and are happy. The rage they feel, the resentment, the bitterness, the hostility. I'm interested to know what are some of the ways you deal with that, if you have to work with these people, or if it's a family member and you kind of have to deal with them. I'm interested in learning, like, what are some of the ways that you deal with that, because it can be very difficult. All right, guys, that's it for now. Have a good day. Whee!